So how much further is it going to push out the European recovery if they wind up dumping, the J&J
Oh
and
yeah,
AstraZeneca and just focus on these
it's
mRNA?
yeah, yeah. It's a great question, and it's quite disastrous here. Politically, there seems to be paralysis in decision making. Firstly, secondly, there's a huge communications disaster over the AstraZeneca vaccine because it's been proved that over 60 or 70 years old, it doesn't matter. And by the way, Chancellor Angela Merkel had her first vaccine with AstraZeneca today. But it's BioNTech is hopefully going to fill this gap. I mean, they're really pushing up the production. They've got a new production plant already started up, and they hope to roll out about 2.3 billion vaccines over the next year. But it's actually becoming very critical here. We're in an election year. There's an average of 300 people dying every day. The infection rate is going up. And somehow there's total, and it's an election campaign, there's a total infighting, and nobody's making solid decisions about another lockdown or where we go from here. So this is a big problem, not having the Johnson & Johnson and the AstraZeneca fully on board.
Well, Judy, it's interesting because if there's one country I would highlight as not doing that, it would be Germany. So can you help me understand how the rising cases and death toll, how not having certain vaccines, and then how the CSU and CDU parties split infighting is all interconnected, and what's the significance of that for Germany?
The significance is that Germany has come out very badly dealing with the third wave. It was very good on the first wave and the second wave, and everything was under control. But the problem is that they didn't prepare for the third wave. They knew it was going to come. This is the first thing. Secondly, this is a highly bureaucratic country. The federal level is one thing, with the states taking their own decisions, but it's highly bureaucratic. And in an election year, so many politicians are afraid to make decisions. The third thing is when Merkel did come out and say, we need a serious lockdown before Easter, everybody said, or the industry said, or the public said, oh, we're not prepared for it. She backed down and she apologized. Easter was the perfect time to do this lockdown. And so we're coming into the thick of the third wave, and the blame has been passed around and around. And it's quite extraordinary in today's Bundestag parliamentary discussion. It was a blame game rather than taking action. And I know so many doctors who have the AstraZeneca vaccine now in their praxis, but because of the communications breakdown and because of the perception of it, people won't take it. And so at the moment, more and more people are going to get the virus, and the death rate will increase. This election year is totally leading to paralysis, which is a great pity.
So that's a big deal. If you're going to have like a political system in Germany in paralysis, so for a broader sense, how does that impact, say, the Europe Recovery Fund, which you could make an argument is needed even faster now if we don't have these vaccines?
Yeah. Well, there's two issues here. One is the economic recovery of Europe, and the recovery will be slow if there isn't a mass vaccination program. This is the first thing. And secondly, the Constitutional Court has actually questioned the European Recovery Fund. So we have this in the pipeline as well. But all in all, the sense of slowness, the sense of urgency, the sense of where are we going on this, it just hasn't taken root. And it's very strange because, I mean, Germany of all countries, the biggest economy, the biggest member of the European Union, it should be forging ahead and leading this push to get as many people as vaccinated as possible. And guess what? Look who the winners are: the United States and the United Kingdom, who Germany mocked just a couple of months ago.
So in the meantime, then we have countries like Italy that's going to increase their budget deficit. Mario Draghi spoke earlier talking about how that they hope to be financing, with good debt, et cetera. Who's going to lead out of this? Like, who's going to be the country then that leads out of this?
It's a very good question. Germany will come through eventually, but there's already a huge dispute inside the European Union on how is the borrowing rate for this huge European economic recovery plan going to be financed? We don't know this. But this squabbling at a time when the European Union should be pulling together and should be led by the European Commission in Brussels, and certainly be pushed by President Macron in France and Chancellor Angela Merkel. But we don't see this happening. And we see the contrary of what did take place a few months ago, when there was a feeling Europeans will pull together, solidarity, we'll share the vaccines. And now we all seem to be going our own way. And once again, the member states are just looking after their own interests. This is, at the moment, not very good news for the identity and the reputation of the European Union. We probably will pull through, but it's going to cost an awful lot of political and social damage.
Well, you're really bumming me out, Judy. So I guess then if it has some significant damage, like what does that look like? Like if some economists are looking for 8% growth in the U.S., like what's the reality then for Europe?
The reality for Europe is that's going to be very, very slow recovery. And just look at the unemployment levels in Spain, in Portugal, in Ireland, in Britain, although it's not in the EU, but it doesn't matter, in Italy. This is the first thing. And the youth unemployment is just totally flat out. It's so low at the moment. This is the first thing. Secondly, retraining schemes for graduates, they practically they don't exist. It's going to take a while to bounce back. Now we get into the bigger geopolitical problem of Germany's relations with China. China growth is soaring ahead. And of course, Germany's exports are reliant on China. And perhaps we see a big geopolitical tussle between the Americans and Germany and China, because Germany is now going to rely on China for growth and for its exports, while the Biden administration wants a united China front westwards, European and the United States. We're in for quite an interesting transatlantic tussle, but also European recovery. It's not going to happen overnight, so there'll be no summer vacations on the way.